intuitive guidance. Let me get my little sluggard Instagram going here, and we'll see what we have. Do, 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 do. Come on, where are you? There we go. All right. So, good morning. Welcome to your early morning intuitive guidance for this fine Tuesday. Hello, Mr. O'Neill. Good morning. Good morning. Glad you are here. So, we have an interesting card today, and I know I say that most days. Sometimes it's a reading, it's not a card. So, there you are. But I have some additional things I want to say about this particular card and this card deck because, good morning, Nancy. Welcome. Glad you're here. Because I was thinking a thought as I was shuffling, and then the card confirmed the thought, which I thought was just bizarre. Good morning, Barb. Welcome. Glad you are here. So the card deck is the Sacred Forest deck, which we've had recently, and we've actually had this card very recently. And my thing always is, if we get a card once, yeah. If we get a card twice, If we get a card 3 times, pay attention. So, and this dovetails beautifully with, I was rereading, hang on, rereading an astrology report that I had printed off. There it is. Maybe I'll pull a few things out of there as well. Kind of the balm for the thought that everything's random. There is nothing that is predictable, blah, blah, blah. Interesting stuff, though. Interesting stuff. So the card, first, let's start with some tapping and a little breath. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, grounding through your feet and the base of your spine into Mother Earth. Breathe in, healing golden light. Breathe out, anything that no longer serves you. It's a flushing system. Let's clean ourselves out here. Much better than go lightly. Breathe in, breathe out. Just allowing yourself to settle right into here and now. And we have some really cool things to talk about. So, card deck, Denise Linn, Sacred Forest. I'm actually rereading one of Denise Linn's books on clearing clutter, clearing your physical being, clearing. So kind of interesting that one of her decks is the one that pops up. Good morning, Janine. Welcome. Glad you are here. So we just saw her recently, Wise Woman of the Grove, and the card is Grace. Grace, and you can see right there the little treasure box, and you can see her stepping out of the trees. So let's see what it says, and then I'll move on to some other things. Wise Woman of the Grove, Grace. The Wise Woman of the Grove steps forward and hands you an intricately carved wooden box. This is my gift to you. Guard it well. With care, you open the box. Inside rests a perfect ruby. It sparkles in the light. This is a joy activator, she says. Hold it to your heart and all around you in all directions. All beings will relax and find joy in the moment. Joy is the greatest gift that you can give another. It is a gift of grace. Imagine that. Imagine if we all had one of these, or even if just the 5 of us who are on here right now had one of these and could walk around and bestow joy. What if we can do that anyway? Just saying. Good morning, Mel. Welcome. Glad you are here. Here's our card, Wise Woman of the Grove, Grace. And the little joy activator there, glowing away. Yes. When this card chooses you, and clearly it chose us because, and I'll tell you that in a moment, I was thinking about this deck, which is a 52 card deck. And as I was shuffling, 2 cards fell out, and I looked at them and I thought, I've never pulled these cards. These cards have never shown up for me. And then I started thinking on the other end of the continuum. There are the cards that show up often. Isn't that interesting? If you looked at the odds of a handful of cards out of this deck showing up repeatedly, and not just 2 or 3 times, but over the course of a year. Good morning, Tracy. Glad you are here. Over the course of a year, dozens of times, it kind of makes you think. And yes, we could do the probability of those things happening with the card inserted back in the deck, blah, blah, blah. I used to love doing that probability stuff. I thought it was so much fun. But the more times something shows up, the less probable that it actually was going to show up, just statistically speaking. Universally speaking, makes total sense. All right. Continuing, when this card chooses you, you are at the advent of a remarkable time of ease, wisdom, healing, joy, and inspiration. And in my mind, that's coming after this other stuff that I want to just share a little bit with you. Your ability to hear the voices of spirit is rapidly expanding and going through these upcoming tumultuous times. July is probably going to be a bumpy month. A bumpy month. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And there's reasons why we need the same message. Hello, are we paying attention? So, spirit guardians are watching over you with immense love and kindness. Being in the state of grace means being blessed by the divine forces. Grace can mean having enough inner nobility that even if you know your opinion is absolutely right, you don't push the point. Excuse me. Good morning, Gwen. And yes, Jonelle, and I'll read some of it to us and help us see that navigating that bumpy month, our mindset is going to make a huge difference. And there's a mindset that I think we can adopt that will help us through all of that. So let's see here. Where are we? You are willing to let things go, knowing that in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Besides, the creator knows the truth of the situation, even if others don't. And those who are arguing may need the opportunity to learn whatever it is, and you may not be their teacher. And guess what? You might be the one that's wrong. There are times to be abruptly, starkly honest, but this isn't one of them. So I'm going to have to work really hard this coming month then. Be diplomatic and gracious in your interactions with others. I could use some polish on that. Speak with love and kindness. The spirit of the wise woman of the grove, I'll let you take a peek at her again, says you can relax and let go. Your path is guided. Spiritual nobility is growing within you. The spirit of grace is softly unfolding in your life. Kindly honor the truth of others, even if you don't agree or if you know better. The Creator knows the truth. And we all like to think we know better, don't we? So, what this is an astrologist of 25 years training and practice talking about July 2026. So, I'll just read it. And I might skip around a little bit, but I want you to hear some of this because we have an auspicious month coming here. We have an auspicious month, and it would be good for us to be receptive to what unfolds in July. So, a couple of years ago, she was tracking July 2026, and she said, I genuinely stopped in my tracks. I sat there staring at Ephemeris, a book of the planetary alignments, thinking, hold on, what? Because the sky for July 2026 is absolutely loaded. And I don't mean loaded in the usual social media astrology way, where someone discovers the sun is having its yearly meetup with Jupiter and suddenly we're all apparently entering the luckiest portal of all time. Eye roll. I've been an astrologer for more than 25 years, and I care deeply about the integrity of this work. Truly, hyperbole is something I try to avoid because once everything becomes life-changing, nothing is. But this is rare and this is big. Yes, you need to get ready, my dear. This is opportunity. So she lays out what's happening in the month of July. Uranus is sextile Neptune. Uranus is trine Pluto. Jupiter is trine Neptune. Jupiter is opposite Pluto. Jupiter is sextile Uranus, and Neptune is sextile Pluto, all within days of each other, peaking around July 20th, when these four planets align at the same degree simultaneously. The cosmos essentially decided to drop an entire year or two's worth of astrology in a single week. By the way, I didn't tell you who wrote this. Yasmin Boland, Boland, and she is on Substack, so you can find her there, and you can find this there. And I printed it off because I thought it was so useful. Why this is so unusual? For anyone who doesn't speak fluent astrology, these are not fast-moving planets having a quick chat. Sometimes planets will pass each other frequently. These are the slow giants of the solar system, the ones whose cycles span decades, sometimes generations, to make their entire circuit around. When several of them form harmonious aspects at the same time, we pay attention. Part of how astrologers interpret rare alignments like this is by looking back at the time when something similar happened and seeing what was stirring in the world. The challenge with July 2026 is that some of these combinations haven't happened since the 1960s. Others point back to the 1920s. A few have no real historical precedent at all. This is auspicious, which makes it genuinely difficult to say exactly how they will unfold. What we can say is the nature of the energy, and the nature of this energy is extraordinary. Enter Andre Barbeau. When I first saw this astrology, I emailed my colleague, Master Astrologer Rick, I think it was Levitt. The end of the letter dropped off. Might be Levi. We'll see. Anywho, moving on. Because I was stunned by it. I joked that we should do an entire conference just around this 1 week. Rick agreed it was that extraordinary. We never got around to organizing it. But I wasn't the only one who was tracking this. The legendary French astrologer Andre Barbeau, widely regarded as one of the greatest mundane astrologers of the 20th century, had been writing about this moment for years before his death in 2019. In his 2014 book, Planetary Cycles, Mundane Astrology, he described this July 2026 configuration as the most beautiful configuration of the 21st century. That's pretty impressive. He called it a reflowering, a relaunch of civilization after a long period of contraction. Yay! His view was that the outer planets forming this pattern, now often called the Barbeau basket, would mark the end of a major cycle of collective crisis and the beginning of something genuinely new. So as we're going through the belches, wheezes, and coughs of July, keep that in mind. This is like labor and delivery, which is a drag. But what do you get at the end result, right? New. Worth noting, Barbeau also predicted the 2020 pandemic years before it happened. So when he describes 2026 as a turning point, that carries weight. So she then lists, she's got a list here, a very loose translation of what this might mean. Humanity gets an update. The future arrives faster than expected. Innovation meets spirituality. Dream the dream. Culture changes aesthetic. Power structures wobble and new ones form. Creative breakthroughs go mainstream. People collectively realize that burnout isn't aspirational. Technology starts searching for meaning. Spirituality gets smarter. The collective starts craving authenticity over performance. Disclosure with a question mark. There's another astrologer that I watch occasionally, and he talks about the ultimate disclosure coming up here, where we begin to know that there are truly extraterrestrial beings, etc., etc. Think of it as a global rebrand, she says. The boundaries between science, spirituality, technology, and mystery become much thinner under these skies. What has felt separate, head and heart, ancient and modern, individual and collective, starts to feel more integrated. Yay! There is a word of caution. Because there's one aspect in this cluster that needs a flag. Jupiter opposite Pluto. This is powerful energy, and it can tip toward shadow if we're not conscious. The intoxication of certainty, the lure of influence for its own sake, big vision without grounded motives. So the real sweet spot here isn't just ambition, it's ambition with integrity. That's a lovely word, isn't it? Integrity. Big dreams, clean motives, open mind, grounded nervous system. That's the assignment. Astrologers will remember Jupiter and Pluto were also center stage, yes, during the pandemic years, which is why this combination tends to make people sit up and pay attention. But the energy of July 2026 feels radically different. Hopefully less lockdown and more seismic positive transformations. How to use it. This astrology rewards people who are open to change, people willing to evolve, innovate, and stop pretending they're fine when they're spiritually exhausted. If you've been sitting on an idea, a creative project, a business, a platform, a reinvention, or a dream that feels bigger than your current life, this astrology supports that movement. On a smaller personal scale, so perk up your ears, this might look like launch the thing, send the email, leave the thing, transform, evolve, embrace change, pitch the idea, change your direction, start your healing, learn the technology, trust the intuition, stop dimming yourself. Especially anything connected to media, writing, teaching, healing, spirituality, technology, creativity, community, or innovation. So let me see if there's. Honestly, all of us are going to feel that something is shifting because it is. After decades of studying astrology, I can tell you with complete sincerity, I very rarely see a sky pattern that makes me put down my pen and stare at the chart. July 2026 did exactly that, and we are almost there. So I thought that was very helpful in terms of framing what's coming and how to navigate it with grace. Our card from today, how to navigate it with grace. We can do this. We can do this. And especially we can do this as we lock arms and move forward. We got this. So if you have questions about this or comments or whatever, put them in the feed. I will get to them when it's time. Looking forward to this. I may read that again as we get into July, just to remind us all that, yep, we knew this was coming. We knew this was coming. So let's take a breath together. Let it go. And be off on your fine Tuesday. Enjoy the day. Embrace the day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you are capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.